Kiev prolongs its offensive in the east for a second day, pushing into Kramatorsk, not far from the city of Sloviansk, where troops fought on Friday. And in the southern port of city of Odessa, at least 34 people are dead in clashes and a building fire. Another 130 people have been detained. Thousands feared dead in a large-scale landslide in Afghanistan. Rescuers have little hope of finding survivors buried under 10 to 30 meters of mud. And an extra 48 hours to question Gerry Adams. Northern Ireland police interrogating the Sinn Féin leader about the 1972 murder of a Belfast widow have more time to charge him or release him. Those are the top stories this hour here on France24. I'm Shona Bhattacharya. Thanks for joining us. Spreading unrest in Ukraine, authorities in Kiev say they're continuing their offensive in the east, pushing on towards the town of Kramatorsk, a day after launching a military offensive in Sloviansk. At least 9 insurgents, troops and civilians were killed there, according to the acting president. 2 state helicopters were also shot down. Meanwhile, hundreds of kilometers away in the southern port city of Odessa, clashes broke out between pro-Russian supporters and Ukrainians in favor of national unity. At least 34 people died there in a building fire and clashes, and some 130 others have been arrested. Thomas Waterhouse has more.
The trade union building in central Odessa engulfed by flames, trapping several inside. According to the local police chief, dozens have died, either choking to death on the thick smoke or killed jumping from the windows. The cause of the blaze is still not known. Odessa is over 500 kilometers from the troubled east, and it's not under separatist occupation. But it was nonetheless the scene of one of the bloodiest battles in Ukraine on Friday. Pro-Kiev and pro-Moscow demonstrators threw petrol bombs and paving stones in violent clashes. There were bitter standoffs in the east as well. On the road to Andrivka, an angry crowd greets Ukrainian troops as they descend on the town. Some of the locals try to reason with the soldiers, some shout insults. Others are too emotional to even speak. Scenes repeated elsewhere in the region as Kiev's crackdown continued, like here in the village of Yasnogeka.
You won't have happy children because of your actions. You'll be cursed by everyone.
You can all see that we don't have any weapons. We're completely unarmed. They come here with their armored vehicles running over our people. They'll be cursed.
In the flashpoint town of Sloviansk, Kiev launched a dawn attack to retake the town from pro-Russian fighters who've occupied public buildings there for over a month. But tragedy soon struck. Ukraine's defense minister, inspecting his troops in the east, confirmed the losses.
Unfortunately, 2 helicopters were gunned down and 2 pilots were killed.
On Friday, the government, eager to show their progress, published these pictures that purport to show 4 pro-Russian militants they captured, along with their extensive stash of weapons. The Kremlin has denied any involvement in the ongoing tensions in the east, nor in the violent protests in Odessa.
For more on this story, I'm joined by our correspondent Gulliver Cragg, who is currently in Kiev's airport. Gulliver, what's the latest on the military offensive launched in the east of the country?
Well, as you can hear, I'm at the airport waiting departure to Odessa to go and see try and find out a bit more about what happened there yesterday. But in terms of what's going on in eastern Ukraine, the Ukrainians' anti-terrorist operation is ongoing. The Interior Minister Arsen Avakov posted on his Facebook page this morning, "We are not stopping," and he said that they have extended operations to the city of Kramatorsk, which is about 10 kilometers from Slavyansk, which was the center of fighting yesterday. And according to Arsen Avakov, the Ukrainian forces have taken back control of the TV tower in Kramatorsk from the separatists. The Ukrainians have seemed to be making claims that they are making greater advances than people on the ground are able to confirm, though, in terms of the number of checkpoints they've taken control of and the amount of the city of Slavyansk that they have managed to wrest back from separatist control. Certainly the separatists are still in control in the center of Slavyansk, but it does seem as though there have been some successes for the Ukrainian side this time around with this new phase of the anti-terrorist operation. But of course, that has come at a price. 2 Ukrainian helicopters were brought down, 2 pilots killed yesterday, and there are reports of at least 20 dead and a further 20 wounded in the clashes that took place in the city of Slavyansk yesterday.
Do we know what the Ukrainian military forces are up against exactly in terms of weaponry?
Well, it's clear from the fact that the separatist forces were able to bring down 2 military helicopters yesterday that they've got surface-to-air missiles, which is not the sort of thing that your average peaceful protester carries. I don't think that there can really be any pretense now that although there may be many Ukrainian grassroots activists involved in this pro-Russian movement in eastern Ukraine, they have also got professional military help. And the Ukrainian government is very clear in believing that that professional military help comes from Russia.
All right, thank you very much. Gulliver Cragg reporting there. We'll be back with you in just a while for more updates. Now, in New York, the UN Security Council held an emergency session to discuss the worsening crisis. Russia called the meeting, where Moscow and Western nations accused each other of fueling violence, leaving members unable to agree on action. France24's Jessica Lermazurier reports.
Russia called this UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine to condemn what it called Kiev's punitive operation in eastern Ukraine, and also to repeat Moscow's position that the government in Kiev is illegitimate. Now, both Russia and the West traded barbs and really accused each other of hypocrisy regarding the situation in Ukraine. We had some very colourful language today with the US ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, comparing Russia to a kid who comes home from a schoolyard fight and tells his mother, well, that the person who started the fight was the boy who punched him back. Now, Gérard Araud, the French ambassador to the UN, went on to describe Russia as a pyromaniac firefighter, essentially saying that Russia was stirring up all of the trouble in Ukraine to use it as an excuse to then perhaps go on and try to annex eastern Ukraine. That, of course, is the fear amongst many Western members of the UN Security Council. Now, nothing tangible came out of this emergency meeting, the 13th such meeting on Ukraine here at the UN, but meetings will probably continue. And what is feared here from Western powers is that Russia is slowly building its case so that it can use this destabilising the situation in Ukraine to justify some sort of military operation there.
Moving on to other news now, a massive landslide has left large sections